Yes, the African Union Symposium, right now on inclusive democracy, is based on the idea that we've come to a point on the African continent where we need democracy to work, but democracy to work for people. And that democracy that should work for people, it must be a democracy that people experience in changes in their lives and in changes in their circumstances. These changes may relate to how they live their lives, how they experience the change they've been looking for, because the fight for independence and freedom was actually a promise that people's lives will change. It won't just be a democracy that it looks nice, regular elections, regular change of government and stuff, but people will experience change. So I truly believe that there is a shared vision of an inclusive democracy. It's a shared aspiration for all the peoples of Africa who care about progress, that there should be a democracy that includes everyone. It is not just inclusion in activities, but inclusion in the quality of life, that everybody must experience an upward swing in the quality of their lives. Yes, some of the challenges that face this path towards inclusive democracy include the fact that we've come to see democracy as elections, as something that happens once every year. As a result, citizens are not owning our democratic processes. They are only needed for votes every 5 years or every 6 years, whatever the case might be, in order just to cast their vote and stay away. So citizens are not participating fully in the life of our democracy, and therefore they are not working to see improved experiences of freedom on a daily basis. So passive voters, passive citizens, do not make a successful democracy. And that is one of the things we need to overcome. Another thing we overcome is that we've come to assume of democracy as a Western import. And we've come to look at it as something to meet Western aspirations, when actually democracy is a desire of all Africans in all their dimensions. And that is, the problem arises also partly because Western donors and others have made democracy promotion their big obsession and almost owned democracy, and therefore disowned, taken democracy out of the hands of the African people, so that when they pursue it, it looks like they're simply meeting the donor demands. We have to change and flip that script and say we need democracy in our terms, and that the West and others support us in the pursuit of democracy that we see. For example, for us, it's not the regularity of the elections that it is, but it is the dividends that come from democracy. Increase in jobs, improved economy, reduced inequality, reduced underdevelopment, greater happiness in society. Those are the things we would want to see, even if they not be the most prominent things the Western donors should do. So we have to overcome that barrier to inclusive democracy. Another one has to do, for me, with weak institutions. If institutions are weak, if institutions are not working properly, then democracy doesn't work, and it may not work as well as it should. Inclusive institutions and resilient institutions and strong institutions protect us from the will of the powerful, from the autocrats among us, from dictators among us. We don't have to depend on big, good men, but we have to depend on effective institutions. So we have to build those institutions and have to protect them from the acts of big men that seek to weaken them, corrupt them, and render them ineffective, and all of that. And lastly, I think for me, it is the political culture. The culture of entitlement, the culture of depending on big personalities, the culture of passivity, the culture of political parties that are owned by a few people, culture of proliferation of political parties. The whole political culture leads to a situation where democracy is not inclusive and democracy is only nominal, where democracy is democracy for a few and not for the rest of society. And we have to, as the symposium shows, we have to do a lot more from the point of regulation to the point of policies and programs, to initiative, to collaborations, to partnerships, to make sure that we overcome all these challenges that we had. But as we say so, we must remember that there is a lot of progress we are seeing in African democracy, a lot more than we often recognize in many of our public engagements. Now, in a symposium such as this one that we have can really help mobilize citizens to take their rightful role in the building of democracy and protection of democracy by reminding citizens that it is in their interest, it is their primary duty to build democracies that make a difference. And we can also use this to conscientize citizens about some of the things citizens can do in order to achieve that, such as getting involved in existing public participation platforms, getting involved in protests, getting involved in petitioning, engage their parliamentarians, signal to politicians that it is in the citizens' interest that everything is done right and to build democracy. But this can also help, symposia of this nature help to identify roles of critical actors such as regional economic communities that exist to organize regional development and stability, to indicate that regional economic communities, as it is said in this symposium, have some role in setting out the norms and the values that our political systems must follow, and in ensuring that the member states actually live by these norms. And some of these norms are basic things like accountable leadership, responsible leadership, effective institutions, efficient systems, responsible and just distribution of budgets in order to support a resilient society that is democratic and inclusive. So an exercise of this nature helps various stakeholders who are now present at this symposium to talk among each other about how they might work together collaboratively to build the kind of democratic futures that we all desire. And I hope that many will come out of here with a sense of what exactly each sector, each stakeholder can do to make sure that the Africa of 2025 will be better than the one of 2024 in relation to democratic experience of the ordinary people of the continent. Africa is a youthful continent. A large number of Africans are actually young people. Now this symposium does place young people at the center of the conversation, because it is premised on the basis that people must participate in the development of their own democracy. Now young people have a role to play at various levels, as citizens, as youth leaders, as formations such as civil society formations, as students, as researchers and analysts. All of those critical roles we have in society, there is always a role for a young person. So young people should not be seen simply as recipients and beneficiaries at the low end of a delivery pipeline, but they are participating at every level, like women, They should be at the center of the design of things. They should be at the center of the implementation of things. They should be at the center of oversight and vigilance about things that are taking place in our society. But for young people to do so, we must be able to reach them where they are found. A lot of them are found in digital spaces. A lot of them are active via social media. A lot of them are out there on unorthodox media spaces. We have to be adept at reaching them and hearing them out on what they think society needs. And we have to make sure that as we do so, young people decide their agenda themselves, because it is their future that we are trying to design. A very critical element of what we should do with young people is to make sure that education remains fashionable, that it is strong, and that it is helpful. That education is a citizen-based idea. It's not some abstract thing. It's about educating and empowering people to become effective citizens. And we have to make sure that citizens participate. Young people as citizens participate. And they are in every structure. And we have to, as is said in this symposium, have to find ways to fight against youth apathy. This sense that young people feel not understood, feel not attended to, and therefore they withdraw to the margins of society. We have to fight substance and alcohol abuse. We have to fight all other social ills that can trap young people away from the center of society, because we need their energies, their creativity, we need their intelligence, and we also need their ability to dream. Because as Ellen Johnson Sirleaf said, the former president of Liberia said, we really need to re-dream Africa. And the capacity of Africa to dream can enable us to achieve the kind of futures that we imagine, at least by 2063, but also beyond that. I think that institutes such as ourselves, the Institute for Pan-African Thought and Conversation and the Institute for Global African Affairs, Trust Africa, and many other institutions that are here, all the universities on the continent, research institutes, NGOs, have a great role to play in working together with intergovernmental institutions such as the African Union and regional economic communities in order to first check whether the policies and policy frameworks that we have right now are still fit for purpose, whether they are still implementable in the nature that they are, and whether they can produce the outcomes that we are looking for. There is no harm in revisiting the decisions of yesterday, if only it is to make sure that we accelerate progress going forward. I also think that in the process of doing so, we must be mindful of those elements of these policies that are foreign imports to us and have nothing to do with our challenges. I also think that the regional organizations and the African Union needs to allow themselves an opportunity to benefit from researchers on the continent in terms of looking at why are certain policies implemented slower than others, why there's so little movement in relation to the protocol or the movement of goods and services and people, for example, why there's so limited progress in relation to the infrastructure and road connections and logistics decisions of the African Union and all of that. Why there's so little progress in relation to water pools, energy pools in each of the regions, so that we can identify the stumbling block, deal with them, so that the continent can faster achieve all the great dreams that Africa has long produced. For it is of no point to have a beautiful vision and a beautiful plans that never gets translated into a reality. An African proverb says that however long a log of wood stays under murky waters, it just does not become a crocodile. So it's not how long we've had these plans, but but it's whether they are what they are. We might just be calling a crocodile what is merely a piece of wood. So it's time for now to open our eyes and check very carefully that what we are trying to implement can be implemented. If it cannot be implemented, it's time to rejig things, regenerate ourselves, and get new things that could get us forward. Africa can rise now.